center of attention, and look like that. We're in the DJ house again. This looks so fun. And what I love is when we talk, the lines move up and down, and it looks so cool.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. We have a big turnaround. A little late today than our normal start time, but that was just a work call that had to happen. It's very funny. This Twitch show is getting in the way. I had to shorten the Jay Mariotti show yesterday because I had a work call, and I mean, there's some of these can't be moved, and there's nothing we can do. So that's that. So my apologies for those of you who were looking for us at 1 and we weren't there at 1, and what the hell, and you're writing letters to your congressman and all these things. So I don't know, but we were on late last night.
We were
really late last night.
It was late.
That was late.
It was late.
And
I got my nap in early, so I was like, because if I didn't get a nap in, I wasn't gonna make it. I guarantee.
The nap. The Lakers crushed the Blazers in Game 2, and we did a watch party on it. And it's weird because they're playing on the East Coast, so it's late for them too.
Right.
Normally, if that game was taking place, it'd be in Los Angeles. It's a 6 o'clock start. There's a major difference there.
Huge difference.
And pacing yourself must be hard as a player because you're playing at 1 o'clock one day, 3 o'clock the next day, 9 o'clock the next day. It must be really, really weird.
But it's like AAU. It's so, you hear guys in the interviews, they all keep referring to their time with AAU because literally that's how it is in AAU. You're playing all these different times and you're in the same location and you're seeing everybody and everything. And there's no home court advantage and everything like that. That's very similar.
It's very similar, and it looks really weird. And the whole thing is it's very, very odd, but fun nonetheless. Yeah. And, we had a spirited discussion about college sports during the NBA portion of it was really mundane. It was we didn't get into those is Jordan the greatest kind of nonsense conversations that everybody enjoys. My bigger thing has been the college debate is so fractured.
It is.
It's amazing, and it's uncanny. Last night after the watch party, I found the links to those photos, and I'm not putting the photos on the screen, but did you see the photos of the quad thing with the Syracuse that I sent you? Holy!
You talking about all the students that got suspended?
All the 23 students got suspended. They're all hanging out. Was that worth it? Here's my question: if you're in a dorm.
Right.
Why don't 23 people go into a dorm room and just party there? You're breaking the same rules, but you wouldn't get caught.
Yeah, but kids, and that was my point originally. People because the weather is nice now, and anybody that has known anything about Syracuse, when the weather is nice, everybody's trying to be outside as much as possible. You don't want to go inside. That's not you do that the whole rest of the year. So you want your parties to be outside. And we knew they were going to party. I mean,
they had
number one party school for how long? How many years running? Or is Syracuse the number one party school?
Jim sends a message. He says, "Good show last night. It was really fun. It was really
cool.
Fun.
No, it was, and the guys enjoyed it. I talked to Hakeem Warwick afterwards, and it was funny because he wasn't expecting for it to be that engaging. He was like, "So we're gonna just talk for the whole game for 2.5 hours?" I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And he was like, "Okay, I'll stay for a little while, but I don't know if I'll be able to hang in there the whole time." And he didn't want to get off yesterday.
He didn't, and he was great. And it's really funny. And I hate that I'm going to say this, but the Syracuse watch parties weren't as good.
No, those are facts.
No offense, Stephen Dorff. No offense, Roosevelt Bowie, but this was more fun.
It was, and we talked about a lot. And you saw the back and forth and mixing in what's going on now currently with politics and everything like that and college sports. And then we got back to the game a little bit, and then we got back to what we was talking about. It was good,
but it was a blowout. It was a blowout, and that happens in blowouts, and that's part of it. I'll defend the conversation in that if that game is a 5-point game with 10 minutes to go, we're hanging on every
That's true.
idea.
That's a good point.
And he says differing opinions made it fun. The game was lousy. Yes.
The game was lousy.
The game was lousy. Yeah, I agree. What we didn't discuss is the breaking news yesterday in Major League Baseball, and there's a little addition to it today. The New York Mets game in Miami yesterday was postponed because one player, one coach on the Mets tested positive for COVID. And this weekend is their big Subway Series. Remember, that was the whole motivation to make sure the leagues played each other and all this stuff is They want to make sure that the Dodgers play the Giants and the Cubs play the White Sox and the Mets play the Yankees. And all 3 games have been postponed. That's the new part. The Saturday and Sunday have been postponed. They do both have Monday off. So if everybody's cleared over the weekend, you could play a doubleheader on Monday. But my God, you can't go 5 days without a team. Last week it was the Reds. This week it's the Mets. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I think they press on. And I made a comment, and this is something I learned yesterday, and I wanted to get your thought on, is I think that Roger Goodell, and I didn't make a mistake there, I'm talking about Roger Goodell, has asked Rob Manfred, whatever you do, don't cancel it.
Yeah. I mean, do you have? I mean that
I can't prove it. I can't prove it, but I heard it.
All right, no, it makes logical sense. But all signs right now, the MLB should at least pause. You know what I mean? Even if you're not going to cancel, they should at least take a pause for a minute. You know, but they're not trying to do anything.
They're not doing anything like that, and they can't because they've shoehorned in. You know, again, it's a money grab. But they shoehorned in extra playoff games. And with the weather, you can't have the playoffs are already going into November. You can't have it going into Thanksgiving.
Right, I agree.
Remember, my Doomsday World Series, I want the Cleveland Indians to play the Colorado Rockies and a blizzard to wipe out both cities.
That's what you said.
I want it. That would be my fantasy. That would be the greatest. Oh, my God. We can't play the World Series because of a blizzard. Oh, God, I can't believe it. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of the things that we talked about yesterday was just the responsibility, and I do feel that you have a responsibility as an organization to make sure, whatever organization that is, to make sure that your employees, even if they're student athletes, they're still employees, and that their employees are in a safe environment. And I think that it is a failure and irresponsible for organizations to open and they cannot provide that safe environment. And that's my issue.
My students, so far, I did my big introduction to my students. So I teach this class every fall up at Syracuse, and my first class is Thursday, and I'm still scheduled to be there. I haven't put gas in my car though, so I'm just saying, not rushing. But that's my plan. Is I'm headed up there to Syracuse, and I've asked my students, and I just wanted to get a show of who's coming, because if half of them are on Zoom, I'm not going. You know what I mean? Like that's silly. And I don't even know how to do a classroom Zoom situation because I didn't get that memo. So I have to find that out, and that's something I have to figure out is how do you broadcast. So maybe what I'll do is I'll bring Streamlabs, and we'll do the whole class right here on Twitch.
Oh, that makes sense.
That would be great, right? And then at least I know we have 8 viewers because those will be the 8 kids. Could you imagine? Screw Zoom. Let's just do it on Twitch. I don't know. The whole thing is I don't know. I did want to tell you a story, though, about a young lady, and I don't want to give her name out, but she's a young lady that I talked to yesterday, and if she's watching, I'm saying this out of love. She told me the story about her 6th grader he's a boy, and he has lost his friends over the quarantine.
Oh, wow.
That his friends he's not a big FaceTimer, and he's not a big, they don't have a lot of video games that they're playing together. And whereas this boy has just become a hermit, like he's just home.
Right.
And she was sending him to the hybrid program that we're not sending my kids to.
Okay.
because she has to do that. And she was really unsure about it and very concerned about the safety and all that stuff. And then yesterday they announced, and I didn't talk about this at the watch party, that my town's school is going all virtual.
Oh.
So she felt relief because now he's not missing out on something.
Right.
And I sympathize with that. Like what I said was, I sympathize with that because while I do profess safety and I don't think, middle schools and high schools are prepared, I don't think they're prepared to have the rules, and I don't think the kids will follow the rules. So I'm on record as saying I was not sending my kids there, but my kids are doing fine, and they're going to be fine with this. My daughter has rearranged her room this week. She is decorating the walls. She's doing all, and she's like on a mission to make her room because that's her palace. That's where she films her TikToks, and that's where she does all her things. And you know what? Go get them. But I heard that story, and I wanted to tell you because I do understand that. Like, you've talked about your kids, and your kids have been homeschooled, so that's not a big deal for you.
Yeah.
But in this circumstance, that kid, I don't know what that is like. Can you imagine being in 6th grade and your friends are not big FaceTimers, so you just have lost touch?
Yeah.
And nobody's shunning him, but he doesn't hang out with his buddies. Right. And the girls, they're on FaceTime all day. Like
all day.
There are two all day. My 8-year-old, she calls her buddies and they play this video game together, and they're on FaceTime on another device. And they play this video game together, and it's the cutest thing in the world. But she talks to her friends for 6 hours all day.
Right. That's true. And so like my son on PlayStation, he'll be down there for the whole day if we let him. Just talking and just going from game to game and stuff like that, and trying to put his team together and everything like that. And, because, video games are different now. We didn't have that. We had to actually physically go to a person's house.
You had to go to somebody's house. I know.
Right. All they have to do is just connect, and they're talking the whole time. So it all kind of depends, but it is different. It's definitely an adjustment.
It's definitely an adjustment, and it's the whole thing's strange, but it was funny because I dropped my daughter off. They did a backyard social distance play date. And what we have decided, the way we've changed it is we've created our inner circle.
Okay.
We have known people well enough to believe that they are taking it as seriously or more seriously than us. And I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, we're like an 8.5 or a 9.
Okay.
Like, we do things. I go to the bank and I go to restaurants and I do pickup. I don't eat in restaurants, but I do things, but not a lot. I don't go to grocery stores. I don't go to a lot of places, and I haven't gone to football practice or a baseball game.
Right.
And so we have this circle. And so if we have a play date with that circle, we say yes. If our kids say, "Can I go over to so-and-so's house?" We think about it. We're like, that person, we know them, we know their parents, we know how serious they're taking it. Yes, that is okay. And they do it all in the backyard. And so it's great. Right. So I dropped off, and she told me this heart-wrenching story about her son and how she's sending her son because of that. She is putting his health at risk because his well-being is a cumulative thing.
Right.
And then when I picked her up, they had canceled it. They went all virtual. I said, so much for that. And as I'm pulling away, I pulled out of their driveway, and I, the kids are waving, and I go, "Now, Syracuse, you're next."
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it yesterday, and even though we just kind of briefly mentioned it, we talked about the other schools like North Carolina. We talked about Notre Dame,
Michigan
and
State,
I said, so when this happens at Syracuse, then we'll see, how everybody's reaction is. But it shouldn't take that. It shouldn't at the rate at different schools at every level, universities, colleges, high schools, middle schools, elementaries, the rate that they're having outbreaks, it should be enough to be able to see that it's not a good idea, or at least not doing it the way that they are doing it. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but it's going to take an outbreak at Syracuse for them to say, okay, maybe we should go virtual.
Well, and that's what everybody's wondering because they saw the suspensions, and now everybody, just because you suspend it doesn't mean that you have it. That's not how it works. And so now these guys are going to have to do testing, and we'll see. My prediction is Monday or Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday.
Monday.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
I agree.
Do you remember your first semester, your first weekend of freshman year?
Of course.
I remember it, and I didn't know where I was going.
Right.
I didn't know where anyone was. People just were like, "We're going here," and okay, and we went, and we did, okay, we'll do everything. And I just remember like, "Wow, this is weird," and I just felt this obligation to do everything.
Of course, everything, nonstop. Right. That's college life.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. The other big story in sports was the NBA saying that there's a pretty good chance that December 1st is not going to be the opener of the next season.
Yeah.
And the NHL hasn't talked about this, and we haven't really talked about this, but the reason is they want to do it in their own arenas, and they want fans.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to do this, this was a massive expenditure that had to happen, but this was a finite thing, and this bubble is not a full-time thing, and neither is the NHL bubbles. I don't know. I don't know. I can't say. Don't worry. We know it'll be good by X time. We don't know, and two things have to happen. You tell me if I'm wrong. Number one. A vaccine would be wonderful, or there's going to be a big old shutdown, like a big old shutdown.
Big one, right.
A big one.
Well, I think number one, the elections are going to have a huge, impact on what happens after that. To be quite honest, and which way those elections go in November will have an impact on which way the NBA goes. And I think that
and all the sports for that matter.
In all the sports, yeah. But I mean, just in the context of here with the NBA, they want to be able to have the protocol set to be able to try to have fans if they're able to. I don't think they're going to be able to. I think they're going to probably have to go back to the bubble. And I know that's not what they want to do, but I think they're going to have both protocols in place for whichever one. But as much as they want to have fans, I just don't see it happening that they're going to be able to do it on December. So their target date is December to be able to do it.
Well, originally the target, what Silver said yesterday to Rachel Nichols was, it's a good chance that that's going to get delayed.
Okay, all right. Well, that's
Two comments in the chat here. First, Jim says, "Will you be rushing to get a vaccine?" To me, will you be rushing to get a vaccine when it comes out? No.
No, not at all.
No. I'm not rushing to do anything.
Yeah, nothing. I'm rushing to do.
I'm not rushing to do anything. I'll wait and see. I'll check it out. I'm very objective when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I agree.
I did get a word, though, get the flu shot as soon as you can.
Really? Why is that?
They said get the flu shot because this flu season, with everything that's been going on, they said the flu on top of COVID is just going to be it's a bad combination. And so my daughter had her 12-year checkup, and we went, and they had masks, and it was I didn't go, but they did it. And they suggest that if as soon as you can, get the flu shot.
Interesting.
Yeah, before the weather changes. We're going to go in September. He says, so if everyone is like you, how is that good when it comes to not rushing to get the vaccine? Oh, there'll be people who rush to get the vaccine. They'll get data on the vaccine.
Plenty of people who rush.
There's going to be plenty of people who get it.
Just like there were plenty of people who rushed when they opened up in different states.
Right.
So as soon as they opened up, people immediately, okay, we're going to go do this, and this.
They ran.
Now,
right.
and we were talked about this on the show. Whenever they open, we're still going to sit over here and see how it goes.
Take it
when they open.
Let the other people be the guinea pigs. And this is my argument why I want the ACC to cancel.
Right.
Because I want the ACC to cancel. Because I want to see what the SEC does. But I want to watch the SEC and say they got it right or they got it wrong. I don't want it to be where we're in the middle of it. And that's my argument. And then it's compounded by the fact that the leaders at Syracuse University are just like, yeah, it's no big deal. Well, they're safer here. Don't worry about it.
And that's my problem.
That's your problem, and I agree. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Juan writes and says, my sister-in-law is sending my nephew and niece to their respective middle and elementary schools in a hybrid scenario. I don't agree, but she feels comfortable that they will be safe. All I can say, and I don't know how every school is doing it, we went to pick up a Chromebook. Did I tell you this last night?
No.
Oh, my God. So yesterday, I had to drive my 12-year-old, my 7th grader, to the middle school to pick up. They have designated a Chromebook in this Hey, man, we have high taxes. This is what we get. They have a Chromebook dedicated to every kid. One Chromebook per kid.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. I mean, my co-host can't even get a new computer.
Right. I'm still working on it, though. I'm working on the new computer. You have to slide that in there. I just texted you this morning about the microphone. Don't be trying to put up business in the street like that. Go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, it's too easy. So we get there, and we pull in the parking lot, and my daughter says to me, she says, Daddy, you have to come with me. I go, why am I coming with you? And she says, look inside. All the people have parents. You must have to sign something or do something. I said, okay. So I pull out my mask. I get it. And I wasn't planning on going in because aren't the whole idea is to keep the people to a minimum?
Right. That's what you're supposed to.
Right? Okay. So now there's a line, and there's no way it's 6 feet apart. There's no way. Now, everybody had masks, so I don't feel like we were majorly exposed. But what?
Yeah.
And every person had a parent with them, whereas if you had the kids, you could spread them out.
Okay.
And then here comes the vice principal. And again, this is just our school. And this is a public school in a nice town. This is one of the top 5 school districts in New Jersey.
Okay.
And the principal comes up, and my daughter is the microphone. Right?
Okay.
My daughter is the microphone, and the principal comes up with a mask on.
Okay.
Says, what's your name? And she says, excuse me, I can't hear. What? How do you spell your name? And she's in her face.
Oh, gosh.
And I went, we were there for 7 minutes. And I said, if there was any doubt that I'm doing the right thing, I was completely vindicated. They're not ready. They're not ready.
They're not.
And I don't know why they're not ready, because they had 5 months to get ready.
They're not ready.
And in my town, all I'll say in my town is they spent so much time because one of their parents went on Tucker Carlson's gosh darn show about this police thing. When we have a pandemic going on, could people focus?
Yeah. You need to stay focused.
Oh, my God. So to Juan's point, like, she feels comfortable. What is the scenario? Like, that's the only reference I have is what I saw firsthand. And I was like, what in the world? And Jim says, you have your mask, so that's okay. It's not okay, because if you think all these 12-year-olds are wearing the mask correctly, and these teachers are older.
Yep. You're right.
It's not right. It's not healthy. It's not right.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir here, so I definitely agree.
But I did it firsthand, so that's why I was reporting it. And like I said, when I found out that our school was going all virtual, all I said was, can Syracuse be next? Thank you very much. Good night. What is the cost down the road of virtual schooling versus in person? Virtual isn't as good as if it was as good. We'd be doing all virtual all the time. And you know what? We might be headed that way.
That's what I was going to say.
We might be headed that way. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that my kids are going to have the same school educational experience that I had.
Yep.
Or that Etan had.
Agreed. You're on fire today. Go handle the next question. You on a roll.
Hey, ask good questions. I give good answers.
Tell them to bring them on. What's the next question? Seth is like knocking them down as soon as they go.
I will tell you one funny thing about a story that we talked about earlier in the week. I told you about SAG-AFTRA, and they've
Oh, yeah.
revamped their health benefits.
Yep.
And so Wednesday we couldn't do a show because they had a seminar about the health insurance, and that health insurance fund has been bled dry because of COVID, and all the members of the Screen Actors Guild and the Federation of Television and Radio, all of the members who have been hospitalized.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the money's come from. So basically, our premiums are going to be doubled in order to keep our health insurance. But fine, we're going to keep our health insurance. The president of SAG-AFTRA is Gabrielle Carteris.
Okay.
She was Andrea on Beverly Hills 90210.
Andrea, okay.
That's weird.
I remember.
That's really weird. and just because I'm a nerd, that so they had this presentation and it was a shared screen and it's long. It was 2.5 hours. It was and it's painful because they were justifying their moves. They're justifying why your premiums go up and your eligibility goes up, which means you have to earn more to qualify to get the health insurance. And a lot of people, and with productions shutting down, a lot of actors won't make it.
That's right.
And that's bad. And it's thousands of people. This is not just a me thing. But anyway, there's a whole section about the retirement fund. And this doesn't apply to me, but I'm still paying attention. I don't know how long this is going to be. And they brought in the former president of the Screen Actors Guild of SAG-AFTRA, and it's a guy by the name of Barry Gordon.
Okay.
Barry Gordon, if you Google him, has been on All in the Family. Barry Gordon has been on Good Times. Barry Gordon is a voice of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, wow.
And I had him on my podcast. And I went, that guy?
Okay.
This is really weird. And I never told you the story, and I'll get off this in a second, but I never told you the story. I had a meeting 2 years ago with SAG-AFTRA, and it was a very important meeting, and I had to go into the office. And the meeting was at like 5 o'clock, and I got there at 4:50, and I'm sitting there. I'm in a jacket, not a tie, but I'm in a jacket, and I'm sitting, and I check in at the front desk, and I'm sitting on the couch area, the waiting area to be called into the office for this meeting. Mm-hmm. And Tempest Bledsoe is sitting next to me.
Hey, Vanessa.
And I'm like, do I take a picture? I want to take a picture with her. Like,
you gotta take a picture.
I didn't. Because I don't know what she's in there.
Oh, you keep messing up with these times. You gotta introduce yourself. Say hi. You gotta take a picture. You gotta come on now.
I like Rudy better. I like Rudy better, but no.
No, this is the third story of yours where you've met somebody famous and you got to take a picture. Come on, Sam. You got to have
Hank Aaron.
If you don't have evidence, it didn't happen. That's how, right? You got to have evidence.
Hank Aaron. And I just get a kick out of they want me. I'm going to be on the podcasting committee for SAG-AFTRA. I will be on this board of the Screen Actors Guild for people to get into the world of podcasting. Okay. And that's my role. And that's not what that meeting was. And I just laughed because I had one presentation to make to kind of like show why I should be on this board. And all the people are either famous network announcers, like Peter Alexander was in there. You know who Peter Alexander, like the White House correspondent, like Peter Alexander. And I'm like, that's Peter Alexander. Like, I know you. You cover stuff like that. That's kind of my thing. And I get a big kick because when it was not SAG and AFTRA and it was just AFTRA, nobody had panache. Oh, now that you merge with the Screen Actors Guild, it's very cool. It's fun.
Gotcha.
It's fun. Anyway,
gotcha.
Tell us about what we have coming up at what time are we doing this? 2:30.
Right. So I sat down with the Not Again SU students, and we had a town hall meeting, town hall discussion with a group called Black Oranges, which is a collection of athletes from Syracuse University, former athletes, and who we want to collectively push for things to get better on campus. There's a lot of different racial incidents that happened last year. like 20 or 25 different, 30 different instances. And
But who started this?
well,
You've told me about this, but I don't know. Like, whose idea? Who came up with this?
so Brian Tarrant, former football player, is the one who kind of got everything together and started calling everybody. And, we'll have this idea. I want to do this. Let's get everyone together. And he kind of really spearheaded the entire thing. And everyone, I mean, all form. If you think of a former SU athlete, football and basketball, everybody's kind of signed on to it, and just really collectively to use our power and influence in order to be able to create change on Syracuse's campus. And so one of the things that I was bringing to the table when we were having our discussions is really the topics of Not Again SU. If I don't know, you remember, because during the back when we was with ESPN Syracuse, we had them on the show while it was happening, and really giving the students a platform to be able to inform everyone, let everybody know what's going on, everything like that, and really have been supporting them. So when I went up to Syracuse, which was the last time I've been out of my house, that was the last trip I took in February to John Wallace's retirement ceremony, I had a roundtable with Not Again SU while they were sitting in at what was the old business. That was my the business management building. I don't know what it's called now, but when I was there, it was the business management building.
Okay.
And I sat down with him. My son Malcolm was with me, and we talked. It was supposed to be like 45-minute discussion, right? We were sitting there talking for about 2.5, almost 3 hours. And I was just really just listening to them. And I was just amazed that everything that they were telling me that happened. So fast forward, we're talking about the Black Oranges. And I'm like, well, listen, you all got to hear what I heard. You all got to be able to understand what actually is going on, not what you read in, the Daily Orange on ESPN, Syracuse.com or anything like that. You need to hear directly from the Not Again SU students, so you get the full grasp of everything that happened in its totality, and hear directly from them. So everybody agreed to it. They're like, well, since this is your idea, why don't you be the one who moderates the discussion? I said, okay, that's fine. So I moderated it, and I just really just set up questions for them to explain to everybody what they explained to me when I was there with the roundtable discussion with them, and they said a lot. And I really, appreciate Seth, technical skills to be able to figure out how to be able to air it on his channel on our show. And so that's what we're going to air. It's about an hour and a half, and you're hearing directly from the students. And that's what's important, because a lot of times their message was misconstrued when you had the papers writing about it, or, saying what. So they just told everything. They started from the beginning and told the story of what happened. We also had a football player who was on, and
current football player?
Current football player, yes. He's a senior. I can't remember his name when I'm on the spot, but you'll hear he's a current football player, senior, and he's talking
about position?
How,
what position? Like receiver, quarterback?
He's you know what? You're going to make me look it up.
No, I'm not making you look it up.
Because I don't remember any of the details. I gotta look it up. But
if he was a basketball player, you'd know his free throw percentage and what NBA player he emulates.
Okay, you got me. You got me. Yes, you're right. I would.
There is a sports bias here.
You're right. But he was on, and we talked about how football system, because as we know, on every campus, the football team is the main revenue generating sport. They have a lot of pull on campus. We've seen what happened at Missouri. We've seen what happened at Oklahoma University when the football team got involved and really worked together. And so really just, as Black Oranges, trying to be able to build on how to be able to use our influence and be a liaison, maybe between the students, the current students, and the administration, and be able to try to push some things along, try to recommend some different initiatives, because we all love Syracuse, but we want to push for Syracuse to be better. And that was the whole purpose of the town hall.
Well, I think it was great. I watched part of it just to, first just to see if it worked. and it does. And I thought it was really, really interesting, and it really looks like this show. I mean, it's what it looks like. I mean, it's all these people talking on webcams. I mean, that's what things are like. I mean, it was weird. My wife was watching the Hamilton, like the making of Hamilton. It's a bunch of guys on Zoom.
Okay, yeah.
That's all everything is. It's a bunch of guys on Zoom. Actually, there's a not to change the subject too far, but there's a new show, and the guy from Schitt's Creek is in it. There's a new show.
The father or the son?
The son.
Okay.
And Dan Levy is his name.
Okay.
And he's in this new show, and it's been filmed entirely in quarantine. And I want to get the name of it. They did it literally just in quarantine, and everything. I think it's called the Coastal Elites, Hold on. No, I think it might be. Oh my God, I can't find exactly what it is. But anyway, he's in it, and they wrote it, and they produced it, and everybody filmed it with their own webcams.
That's pretty cool.
And it's pretty. Maybe Coastal Elites. Yes, there it is. Coastal Elites is an upcoming American comedy television film directed by Jay Roach. Stars Bette Midler, Sarah Paulson, Caitlin Dever, Dan Levy, and Issa Rae as 5 people living in either New York City or Los Angeles, navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. It's set to premiere on HBO on September 12th.
Issa Rae is doing it. Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, Issa Rae. She's one of the 5 people, and they all join the cast. And Jay Roach, who the director, he has directed Recount. He directed the Austin Powers, Meet the Parents, Meet the Fockers, Dinner for Schmucks, The Campaign, Trumbo, which is a great movie. That's Jay Roach, and he has created this thing, and it's a TV movie. It's going to air on HBO. For you cord cutters, that's HBO Max. And it stars Bette Midler, Sarah Paulson, Caitlin Dever, Dan Levy, and Issa Rae as 5 people who have just they're actors and they can't get work in the pandemic. That's what I heard. That's the story.
It's good stuff. That sounds good.
Yeah, and they played a clip on a podcast, and Dan Levy was talking to his therapist about how he's tired of playing gay guys.
Really?
And they're like, but you're gay. He's like,
oh, but he is gay. Okay.
Well, I don't know that he's gay, but he plays gay. I don't know what he is in real life, but in Schitt's Creek, he played a gay guy.
Right.
Or a bi guy. And it was, and he plays that role very well. And so he's fearful of being typecast. And I thought that was funny. That's September 12th on HBO.
That sounds good.
Yeah. The Toronto is up early on the Brooklyn Nets because it's 2:00 on a Friday, and there's basketball going on.
You know, it's we ask some of our viewers, but you know, when we did the watch party, you know, it's at 9:00, and you know, it's going until like midnight. You know, it's a late party. Would people want to watch a watch party in the middle of the day, or you know, because now there's playoff games in the middle of the day. Playoffs started 1:00, then they start at 3:00, then they're, you know, at 6:00. So they're all
one thing, and I don't know if you're not noticing this, but you're breaking up. Your internet is spotty.
Is it?
And it's very different. And this is Zoom versus House Party, because in House Party you would break up, and then when you came back, we would miss whatever you said. But in this is so weird. In your speech, and watch the archive of this show, because what happens to you is you break up and then you come back and you speak really fast, and we're hearing every word you say. So you go like this. You go like, and I think the LeBron James is the greatest player in the world.
Oh, really?
You do that. And you say it really fast. And one of them was when you were trying to think of the football player. You had broken up, and you were like, I can't think of anything.
And that's how it does. That's interesting. Yeah, that's not how I regularly talk. Everybody, that's the Wi-Fi connection.
Oh my God, that's weird.
That's funny.
Right. Andrew says, I thought it was my connection. It's not. It's his connection. But for some reason, Zoom does it differently. I've never seen that before. But you're talking really fast. And it was really, really weird. Really weird. One NFL thing that I wanted to bring up before we get to the presentation. And the presentation's about 90 minutes. So we're going till about 4 o'clock today. The NFL coaches, and I can only use the Jets, and I'm wearing my little Jets shirt today. I can only go by the Jets because that's who I'm covering every day. But I talked to somebody from NFL Network yesterday, and they said this is happening all over the place, like all over the place.
All right. This doesn't sound good.
That they are trying to schedule scrimmages at their football stadiums. So, for example, I'm just going to use the Jets as an example. The Jets are not going to, one day, they're not going to go to their training facility, which is in Florham Park, New Jersey, which is like 10 minutes from here. They're going to go 25 minutes from here, and they're going to go to MetLife Stadium, where they will go through a scrimmage where the defense is going to line up on one side of the field and the offense is going to be on one side of the field, and Adam Gase will run the offense and Greg Williams will run the defense, and literally they're going to just keep playing series against each other.
Okay.
It's to simulate game action. Okay. I think this is lame because honestly, I believe in my heart preseason games were a big mistake. And what my guy at NFL Network said was that was pushed by the players. And I didn't know that. I don't understand why the players said no to preseason games, because two preseason games would have been ideal. One would have been sufficient, but 0, I think, puts them at greater risk for injury. And I think it hurts their chances because they don't know how to travel in the pandemic.
So what I heard was that the reason why they were against it was because they didn't have the protocol in place quite yet at that time.
Right.
And so it wasn't so much that they were against playing preseason games. They just wanted, and that brings another question as to why the NFL waited so long when they could have been putting this in place for this long period of time throughout the year of what the safety protocols would be. So from what I'm hearing is that their objection to it was more because of they didn't have the safety protocols in place by the time that they were going to do the preseason game.
Right. That's correct.
Yeah. Well, that's all the NFL. That's the NFL's fault. They had all this time to be able to put something in place. You know, I mean, in the same sense, I seeing Syracuse players, not practice and not take the field because they didn't feel comfortable with the safety protocols that the university put together for them to practice. And then my question is, well, why wouldn't the university put the protocols together a long time ago? If they were, so I fault the university as well. Right. And Dino Babers actually said that they dropped the ball with that. He took responsibility for that point because he said they should have had things in place. So that was, people think we're bashing, Dino Babers because we talked about him a lot with the other comment, but that was actually a good comment that he made.
Well, and Andrew writes, it says, I'm correct. The issue is the players do not get paid their salaried rates for the preseason games. So Adam Gase yesterday is explaining how they had a scrimmage, and I mean, this is a detail. 3 of their wide receivers got hurt, right? Oh, well, one of them opted out, this guy Josh Doxson, and Denzel Mims, their big draft pick, has a hamstring injury, and this other dude has a quad injury, and he's out like 2 months. Okay. So they're kind of hurting at wide receiver. Right. And so Adam Gase just casually, and I'm doing something for SI about this afternoon, he just casually says, we're not doing the scrimmage. And we went, what? And then he's like, well, when are you rescheduling it for? And he's like, we're not sure. And I was like, the season starts in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
You got to know that. You got to know that. If you need Etan and I to play wide receiver, do
right. you got to have a plan.
And what I was told is that I'm not picking on Adam Gase because I heard a lot of teams don't have this idea. And it's not that the quality of play is going to be ragged, because that's what you hear all the NFL people say. Well, week 1's going to be really sloppy. I don't care. I think you're going to get people breaking legs.
Right. And that's the thing.
Like, it's going to be nasty. The Jets, just to use the Jets as the example, they have 4 new starters on their offensive line. They have never played together.
Right.
I don't care practice. I don't care. You have to play a game together because you don't know what this guy's like in a game. You don't know what that guy's like in a game. You can't simulate that.
You're right.
I just think that's a big mishmash.
Mishmash
is my official description of it.
You
know, like hodgepodge is baseball. NFL is mishmash.
I agree, and I agree, 100%.
That's awkward, man. It's very, very awkward, and I'll be honest. I don't know how they're pulling this off.
Yeah,
they're pulling it off, but I don't know how. And I'm not saying cancel the NFL,
right?
Because they're adults and they're grown men and they can do it. But I'm like,
they have to have a good plan. This isn't a good plan, and that's true. But hey, Seth, I gotta actually jump off because I'm gonna, so I'm gonna be interviewing a mayoral candidate for Tulsa at 2:30, and
right. Okay, so we're gonna throw to this thing. We're gonna throw to this thing
Tuesday, so this is a big one.
All right, so tee it up for people who are joining late. Explain what this is, and I'll hit play.
So what you're gonna see is a town hall discussion put on by Black Oranges, and they're gonna be not again SU students and also a representative from the football team, and they're explaining what happened last year with all the racial incidents that happened at Syracuse University, and we're trying to figure out how we move forward from here. And that's what you're going to see right now.
All right, here it is. We're going to go to a different picture, and if it takes 30 seconds for me to get the thing to play, don't be a jerk in the chat room. Like, just bear with me. I'm working on it. But I think we are going to throw to this, and it's going to look really cool when I throw to it, but hopefully it plays.
We are recording.
Okay. Hey, Monica, why don't you or Shelton make the introductions and we'll go from there. That's okay.
Okay, good evening, everybody. First off, we want to thank everyone for joining Black Oranges for tonight's town hall meeting, which will focus on police and community relations on and off campus, and also race relations between the student population and the staff. We know with the circumstances that are taking place with the pandemic, there are a lot of moving parts where people have to adjust on the go. So we thank you for making a sacrifice being with us this evening, and we humbly and sincerely appreciate your support. Now at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, who needs no introduction to the Syracuse family or even nationally. He's an author, he's an activist, he's definitely an outstanding basketball player at the professional level and also at Syracuse University, and he will be serving as our moderator this evening, no other than Etan Thomas.
Well, thanks for that wonderful, overwhelming, and very kind introduction. I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And like he said, we have a lot of moving parts right now. There's a lot with the pandemic that is going on. A lot's going on campus. We have new news coming, daily as far as if there's going to be a football season. So I know we had 2 football players that wanted to join. I think one of them are able to. So we're going to figure this out. But this is an important discussion because Black Oranges, the reason why Brian Tarrant got everybody together and formulated Black Oranges is that so we could be as former SU athletes, that we can use our collective power to be able to make Syracuse better. That's really what we want to do. And, I shared with everybody, once we were on the Zoom calls and everything like that, my experiences of sitting down and speaking with not again SU students. And it was a, very eye-opening experience for me. I was there for John Wallace's retirement ceremony, and we had a round table discussion. I was there with my son Malcolm, and we had a round table discussion with Not Again SU while we were there. So we went to the discussion, and it was very eye-opening. I have to say, we left there. It's interesting. My son, he was so quiet there, but afterwards he had nothing but questions. As far as to, why is it like this on Syracuse University now? This isn't the Syracuse that you explained to me and that I always grew up, because both me and my wife were both proud Syracuse alumni. And, I told him, well, this is step one, and we're going to figure out how to make Syracuse better. And so it was just great that, months later, Brian Tarrant, started putting together Black Oranges, and this is the perfect way, because we have to use our collective power. So what we wanted to do now is to really get information. This is for us to be able to have everyone be educated onto everything that has gone on and how we can be best of service. How we can help the current student population, how we can bridge the gap between the current football team and the current basketball team, which I would like to do more. One of the things that I heard from the Not Again SU students was that they felt a lack of support from different organizations, and that's something that we want to definitely improve on. So without further ado, I want everybody to be able to introduce themselves and give themselves a proper introduction, and we'll start with the Not Again SU students. And I know they want to be, I don't want to call them by name, and they explained to me why they don't want to be called by name. I had the chance of being able to have some of them on my show, and they explained to me. So I want them to explain to everybody why they are, why they need to be kind of anonymous for this time, or if it's the same as it was during the semester. So let's see, the first Not Again SU students, there's 3 of them who had who took time out to join us today. So I guess one by one, if you all could just introduce yourself in the way that you want to.
Hi everyone, my name is, I'm not gonna state my name only for, just to be safe. The reason why we are nameless and faceless, well, here we can show our face, but the reasons why we don't state our names is, for one, we don't want any repercussions against us. Students who are waking up the campus, being activists, and a lot of times where Black student activists are organizing or are part of a bigger movement on campus, it threatens the administration, and that is why they would like individually start, not threatening students, but just making it unsafe for us on campus. And some of us are here on scholarships, some of us are not. So we don't want our scholarships taken away because we're student activists on campus. But I'm Not Again SU panelist 1. I am now a sophomore. I started Not Again SU as a freshman when I came on campus. And that's it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us. Not Again SU panelist 2, if you would be so kind and introduce yourself.
Okay, so I guess I'm number 2. I don't have a picture. I tried to put a background. It was not working with me. But I'm here. I'm also a rising sophomore. I'm majoring in public relations and psychology. I've also been an organizer since November of 2019. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. I definitely appreciate it. And Not Again SU student 3, if you can introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm number 3. I'm also a rising sophomore. Also began when I was a freshman the first semester last year. And I'm majoring in political science and minoring in African American studies and religion. And we really appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you guys today.
Definitely. Now, we reached out to a few of the current football players, and I don't know if they were able to join. If one of you are able to join, can you speak now and introduce yourself?
How you guys doing? I'm Kingsley Johnson. I'm glad to be here. I'm a senior, playing football at Syracuse University.
Great, great. Thank you for joining us. And I think you may, I'm looking at my messages, you may be the only one that was able to join us. Is there another one that was able to join us? Okay, great. So you'll just have to hold it down until any of your other teammates are able to come on if they are. I wanted to start off with, not again SU students, and you could just feel free, whoever wants to start, to bring us up to speed. One of the things that happened when I went there and had the roundtable with you all, there was so much information that I didn't know. That, I read about what was going on. I read about the incidents. I read about the fact that there were, the administration was kind of slow to, respond. And one of the things that really stuck out with you, with me and my son, was the notion that you all felt unsafe. That was the word that really, really stuck with my son. My son asked, he said, that sounded like the movie Higher Learning, because I showed him Higher Learning, not that long ago, him and his team. And he said, it sounded like Higher Learning was going on in Syracuse. And that was heartbreaking for me to hear as a former, proud Syracuse alumni. But I don't think that us pushing for Syracuse to be better doesn't mean that we're still not proud. And I think that everybody that on this call are proud Syracuse alumni that want to push for it to be better. So first of all, I want y'all to explain to everyone the feeling of not feeling safe on campus. Let's start there.
I can start. So basically, after you came with your son and we had that talk, we were really just trying to negotiate with administration. So before that, I'm going to just give an overview of what happened. Back in November, there was a racial incident that happened in Day Hall, which is up the mount, and it's right next to Flint. And basically a couple students wrote the N-word on the on the bathroom mirror. And then they also wrote another racial slur towards Chinese students. And so from there, they told students not to say anything to media or to other students because they didn't want it to get big. They didn't need another negative publicity against the school. And so once students found out, especially students who were here for 3-4 years already, who dealt with the racism from 3-4 years ago, they were extremely upset and they said, we want to take action. The action was to do a sit-in protest in Barnes. Barnes is one of the newest buildings on campus. So we knew that's where the moneymaker was at. So that's exactly what we did. We did a sit-in protest with Barnes. And from there, we were there for about, I believe, 7 to 8 days, or maybe it was 9. We were there for more than a week. And people were sleeping over, and there was times where they would have people come spy on us and have, there was a manifesto shooting airdropped at Bird Library. That's where the unsafety came from, because we knew that we were directly being targeted by these racist students. And we also knew that administration wasn't going to protect us or help us like they say they will. So from there, we ended up doing the big meeting, or where the chancellor spoke to the university and everybody at the school in the chapel. And he said that he wasn't going to sign our demands because some of the legal reasons. We had to change a couple of things in our demands list, but no one told us that. And so once he said he wasn't going to sign the demands, we started protesting. We had to change a couple of things in our demands list, and then it was signed off. But the reason why we occupied again is because the demands they signed off, we looked on the website to track the demands, and they said that it was more than complete, and we knew that it wasn't. So again, the incompetence and the lack of honesty from the administration to students. So we said we're going to occupy Krause Hines now, and we're going to do it for however long it takes for them to actually take us seriously. And so when students started occupying Krause Hines, if you read up about what happened in February of 2020, They basically starved students for 3 or 4 days, and then both of my Not Again SU panelists can speak on it, but they were inside and I was organizing on the outside to make sure that no SPD and DPS came to pull them out without their consent, and also because they were giving they called students parents and grandparents violating FERPA rights, and then they also were telling students if they wanted to eat they had to negotiate with them, so basically negotiating their basic rights with administration in order for them to eat a small sandwich.
And this is DPS that was saying that, right? Or was it
this was administration? This was actual administration. Both the panelists can speak on that specifically, but I'm just going to give an overview about what happened so that you guys are caught up. And so after that, that's when you came, and we had multiple people came to, do talks and panels as we were trying to negotiate with them, because it was taking a long time for them to actually sit down with us and negotiate the terms on our demands list and our document. And it was very concise, it was very detailed, and if anybody wants our demands list, we can send that over. But essentially that's what happened. We ended up sitting down with them for the first I believe it was 3 or 4 days. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then that Friday, it was like really quick. And they didn't even sign off on our demands like we asked them to. They went based on what they wanted to do and not what we agreed on. So it felt like it was just this back and forth, like it was nothing really being done. And then during quarantine, we got on the call with them again, and they hung up the phone on us. And as we were trying to, finish negotiating, they just it's a pandemic and we're quarantined, and really if they didn't want to do what they say they were going to do, we're not physically there to make sure that they're going to keep up with our demands. And so right now we're in the midst of making sure that our demands are in place and making sure that they're actually being fulfilled to its fullest extent. The unsafety comes from when we talked about this manifesto being dropped. It was a New Zealand shooting in a mosque, and a white student airdropped the manifesto to a bunch of people in the library, and state troops came on the campus, SPD came on the campus. We felt unsafe because we automatically knew that them airdropping the manifesto on this Greek website was basically saying go target the people at Barnes. And then from there, when admin starved the students, we automatically felt unsafe, because if you starve us for just peacefully protesting, what else can you do for us just peacefully protesting? So that's where the unsafety comes from. And there's multiple times where students who were here before us said that when they tried to apply for things, or when they try to get things, if they see their name and they're student activists, they will actively make sure that student doesn't get let's say if they're applying for the job, make sure that, so basically blackballing activist students, especially Black activist students on campus. So that's where my unsafety comes from, because I do a lot of activism work on the outside. And this was my first time being a freshman organizing within a university, especially a private one, especially a university that has history of racism since the 1900s. So I did my research on Syracuse, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I actually got on campus. But given that I've organized on the outside with other people and big activists, it was kind of easy for me to get into the activism on campus. But again, I don't feel safe even being I go back to school next week, and I know I'm on South Campus, and they're going to heavily police with DPS that to make sure nobody is walking around or making sure they wear masks. And we know that when DPS is heavily policing Black and brown students, it never looks good. So that's where my unsafety comes from. I don't believe in law enforcement, and I just know that when I go back and my name is seen, they're going to automatically know who I am. That's why I feel safe. But I'm going to let my other two panelists speak more about that.
Well, definitely, thank you for that that description. And I want to go to the other not again SU student too. You know, to just expound on the actual atmosphere as far as the events, because a lot of people, you know, we read it, we read everything that happened, but the way that y'all described it happening in real time was just so different to me. Now, it was like one racial incident after another. It wasn't like just one, like the N-word was sprayed was painted on the wall one time, and then, you know, that's really it. There was like over 25 different things happened in like one semester that y'all were explaining to me. Talk about that aspect, because that's the part that, you know, a lot of people don't really still know.
Yeah, so there were over 30 like bias related incidents in the first semester of our freshman year. So I think just that in itself, and then there being no updates on the DPS website that they made to update us and let us know the progress of each of the one of the crimes, that never happened. So they would say, oh, it's like still in investigation. They wouldn't let us know any, like, obviously they can't tell us the names, they can't tell us any of the perpetrators, but we also haven't heard whether they've been found or not. So that, like, that's very concerning, considering a lot of students were very concerned, especially freshmen. Like, when you first get on campus, and then within the first 2 months of your freshman year, you have a lot of these racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic crimes happening on campus in your residence hall, you know, and then hearing from DPS officers that you cannot speak about them because you will get in trouble if you speak about them. That's very concerning, and that creates a very unsafe environment because you can't even talk about what's happening. So how do we get to solving the problem if we can't even address it amongst ourselves? That's very concerning. So that's November. I can speak more on the Cross Hines situation because I was inside the building, and I remember when you came with your son. That was like after our suspensions were lifted. But I want to explain that the first night that we were there, they literally they suspended us. They put us on interim suspension at midnight. The building closed at 9 o'clock. They closed it 30 minutes earlier so people wouldn't get back in from getting their clothes, because we were always planning to sleep over. That was our plan from the beginning. And I think they caught on, so they closed the building 30 minutes earlier, which is fine, but we were not prepared to be put on interim suspension, which is for like that's interim suspension. The description that they gave us was for people that pose a real threat to the academic atmosphere. So people that have weapons and people that are actively threatening other students on campus. So if you're looking at student protesters that are sitting in a building as an active threat, but you're not saying the same thing for a school shooter manifesto, that also creates a very concerning comparison. And obviously Black and brown students will not feel safe or protected on this campus if that's how you're responding to those two incidents. So after we were suspended, we were not let outside of the building because they told us if we left the building, we were subject to arrest. And obviously a bunch of freshmen, we don't know. Some of us are familiar with our rights when it comes to that, some of us are not. I was one of them that wasn't. I like lost my job because I couldn't go to work. I was scared for losing my scholarship because I didn't know what else could happen. After I was placed on interim suspension, they said you have to open a case and whatever, and then they lifted it. The next afternoon, Kent Sivrud was like, oh, like, I don't know who suspended them, their suspensions will be lifted immediately. And then we were all confused. That was the first time the chancellor said anything, and he was like, I don't know who put them on suspension. So that's also unsafe, because who's making the decisions if the chancellor is confused about the decision that was made previously? So that's also another thing. And just not getting food, medical supplies, medicine, menstrual products, any of that. Like, people were trying to slip pads under the door, and the DPS officers would literally like throw them out, or any bag that came in, they would be searched for any food, and food was thrown out in front of our face because like it could not get to us. And that's on video. So like, we wish we were making this up, you know, like to sound very like they're hurting the kids, but they're hurting the kids, and that's what happened. So
You know, it's it's amazing hearing this, because this is like, nothing has happened since this. And my issue is that, and my concern is that nobody is taking responsibility, at least to what I've heard from this, about that this happened. Still no arrests. And you correct me if I'm wrong, anywhere I say no arrests have been made. Nobody has identified the perpetrators of who wrote the racist graffiti, who did the white supremacist manifesto, who, none of the people have been identified or arrested, correct?
Yes.
That's correct. All right. So one of the things, and then I want to go to Jonathan. One of the things that you said while you were there was the lack of support that you felt from other organizations that were there. That at first, a lot of different organizations, a lot of the white, because it looked like everybody was just all on Syracuse campus was just unifying against hatred. That's what it looked like for a quick minute. Then, it changed. And, I saw where the basketball team wore the Not Again SU shirts at the game, and they came down there after, and I'm glad that y'all, and I said that while I was there, I am glad that y'all checked Coach Boeheim when he initially said, that we don't know if this is a racial incident or movement. It could be just one person. And I was like, wait a minute, Coach, you can't say either way if you don't know. And then he came down there and y'all discussed it with him. But talk about the lack of support that you all felt from the other student organizations, from the white fraternities and sororities, from the Jewish fraternities and sororities, from the football team, from the, the different sports, because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to bridge this gap where you all don't feel like y'all out there by yourselves. So talk about the lack of support that you all expressed, that you felt from other organizations.
Well, if it's okay with y'all, I'm gonna just go real quick. At the Barnes incident in the first semester, I personally, I think the other two people would agree with me that we really didn't have a lot of support until other bias-related incidents had happened to other ethnic and racial groups on campus. So once those groups have been affected, we then felt like they kind of supported the movement, but also had specific personal agendas. And as for myself, someone who's Black and Jewish, even right now with the Kraus-Heinz incident and the Barnes Center incident, we've actually seen a lot of Jewish fraternities being the ones who are perpetuating the racial stereotypes and derogatory terms against Black students. So that's been really difficult personally for me to deal with. We also haven't gotten to, we've had support from Hillel, the organization, kind of a little bit on campus, but not that much. And then with that, the white frats and sororities really have retracted themselves, and it was really evident in the second semester how people did not show up as strong with their organizations purposefully. Like during the Barnes Center incident, we had a lot of the white sororities show up with their sororities to make it a point that their sorority was there. Not even for their own, acclaim did they show up second semester. So that's been really difficult. We've been trying to work with the football team for a really long time, still, in between there. And then basketball was a whole different situation first semester with Coach Boeheim and his comments, and then trying to organize with the players individually to get them with the t-shirts and everything. So honestly, it's felt kind of desolate on campus. It feels really isolating at times when you try to work and you want to, we want to collaborate with all of these different groups. We want to collaborate with as many organizations as possible, but it just seems as though people are trying to find the right time to put themselves in for personal acclaim and recognition more than actually contributing to the movement at hand.
I see. And this is where, and we're all responsible because we all want to be able to be supportive. Everybody on this call wants to be supportive. So some people, because you made it very clear when I spoke with y'all that you didn't feel a lot of support from the Black alumni, you know what I mean? From the athletic alumni. And I'm a part of that. So it's not that, I don't want anybody on the call to feel, too much like they're being, the whole point of this is for us to make sure that they feel supported and that we're able to support them in the way that we can. And we want to listen to them about how we can be supportive of them. I want to go to Jonathan, and I want to ask you as a football player, as a current football player, did you know all of the details of what happened? Because a lot of times when you're in your sport, I know I can speak as a basketball player. I know a lot of different athletes can speak as that. You're kind of in a tunnel vision of your sport. And so it's like you go to practice, you go to your meetings, you go to a game, and it's kind of like tunnel vision. Were you aware of everything that happened, on campus last year? And, do you think that this is something that the football team would want to, I know you can't speak for everybody, would want to try to help as far as race relations are on campus as a whole? That's a loaded question, but just wanted to ask you those.
Yeah, I think I'll break it down as I go along. Most definitely, as a football team, we discuss this, and I'm 100% sure that any of my teammates will back me up on this, that we wanted to help as much as we felt that we could. And at some point when it was all just getting started, we didn't feel like we could do anything. Let me break that down. I mean, we felt like as NCAA players, I think we felt for some reason restricted, like protesting and like representing something in some sense, like that, not again SU tag. So we had a meeting with compliance and all that about, okay, how can we still remain eligible, and still support things like that. And they told us that as far as they know, it's not against the NCAA policy. So as from that, then we had guys go to the sit-ins. Like we had Andre Cisco talk at the sit-ins, and he wasn't sure he could talk because of the NCAA. He thought it was an NCAA violation, and he was going to have his. So after we made clear of the possible non-violations, like we didn't. I don't think we did as much as we could have. I would say that. I think that we was in the middle of the season. Guys, we already had so much going on, with this, going football practice meetings, sleep, wake up early, lift, all that. And guys just felt like, okay, what can I do? And for the most part, I didn't feel, I'm going to talk for myself in this instance. I didn't feel like, I don't know how I should put this without sounding. I felt like, which we
It's all right. Take your time.
I'm lost of words. Like, because when we heard about like what was going on, like we at one point we didn't want to play for Syracuse University. We was like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. We had a meeting with Wild Hack. We asked them about all this, and that was a long time ago. But at one point, when they suspended the protesters, that was like one of the last straws that we were like, okay, what is going on with this? We had guys talking to the administration, like, okay, what can we do about this? And I believe that if that happened during the spring and we didn't have as much obligations as we did, I wouldn't be surprised if you had like a lot of football players in there sitting in with them, because there was no doubt that we supported what they stood for, and that people were on the football team were scared of losing more than losing the opportunity they had if they're involved in something like that. I mean, they missed practice for that but Coach Babers was supportive of us, what we're to do. He understood that, okay, sometimes you have to take a stand and things like that. But it started to get a little better when they started listening to some of the demands and started to have like this discussion back and forth with the chancellor and the coach, John Wildhack, assured us that he was going to do whatever he can to make sure that something gets done. I think like we felt a little better. As I felt the best when everybody was back home, because thinking about like everybody sitting in without being fed. I literally had classes in the same building with Biko. If you guys don't know him, Professor Biko, like he was big on the. That was beside the point, but we had classes in that same building where they were sitting in. Our class wasn't meant to be there, but we just went there, just so we could see what was going on, and it wasn't a pretty sight. Like DPS, like after those days, like they rubbed me the wrong way. Like anytime I see a DPS, it's like I'm seeing a police officer. It never used to be like that. Frankly, for us athletes, anytime we see DPS officers, we're not scared of them because we're athletes and they're gonna give us a pass. But after those days, some things changed, and if you're gonna deny somebody food, someone that. But I felt like, given the opportunity, we can be more supportive and do some more in our means to help this stand and move forward.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you this, Jonathan, and I definitely appreciate you being as honest as you were, and it's tough to be able to represent the entire football team by yourself. So that's a tough position in itself. So I really want to tell you, I thank you for coming on and saying the things that you said. You referenced something, but that I want to kind of back up to. There's this notion kind of hovering around the football players, and I've spoken to a few of them that spoke to me anonymously, because right after I spoke to them, to Not Again SU, I went and I contacted the guys that I had a connection with and asked them directly. I was like, okay, do you all feel that you have the potential of losing your scholarship if you join a protest on campus? That was flat out. You know what I mean? Is there a fear that if you speak out on a protest that's on campus that you have, and I have to ask it because that's not how it was with basketball. We never had that. I've never had that float around. That was never a thought. That was never dangled over my head. I mean, the first day on campus for me, I joined a protest, and it was that the DPS had pepper spray. Now, this is back in '96, so things have changed since then. But the protest was that the DPS was allowed to use pepper spray. And the thought was that they would use them all the black and brown students. But now, at least what it appears is that DPS is fully weaponized, like regular policemen. And that's a whole new thing that I don't know about. So, but going back to what I'm saying, asking you, Jonathan, was there that notion around the football team that kind of, if they did join, or if they did say too much, or they said anything at all, that they could lose their scholarship?
Yeah, most definitely. For some guys at the beginning of all this, we didn't know a lot about what was going on, but we saw students getting suspended and all that. Some of us thought that, okay, if they're getting suspended for sitting in, like, what are they gonna do with football players? Is going to take our scholarship that's the first thing they're gonna do, and just force us to get out. But I feel like, yes, that was one of the concerns some of our players had.
Wow. So, and just an announcement to everybody, and I'm sorry, I was supposed to announce this earlier. I got, right into the discussion. But in the Zoom group chat, if you have any questions that you would like me to ask the panelists, put them in the chat, and I'm going to go by one, in a little while, and just ask your questions. So you could be part of the entire discussion. So just write in the group chat, the Zoom group chat, just list your questions, and I'll try my best to get to all of them. Yes.
Do you mind if I reply? I had a couple of things to say.
Definitely. No, I'm kicking it right back to you. Yes, sir.
Responding to one of the panelists who spoke on the first thing about with support from organization, I wanted to speak on that because I noticed that in connection to right now with the Black Lives Matter movement and what happened on campus, where there's a big hype on campus and a lot of people are coming and a lot of people are basically saying like, they're on campus and they're supporting, and then somehow all the support goes away. And that's what I noticed with a lot of Greeks and with a lot of athletes. And so with the basketball team and Boheim, that was very interesting to me because it was interesting that, you know, what he said, basically, I'm going to turn my camera on. What he basically said is a person who has privilege. He is a white man who is working for a white institution. And so him saying like, oh, I don't think Syracuse University is racist is because he is actively a part of that oppression against Black and brown folks on campus, against Black and brown folks and Black and brown athletes. And so I'm not surprised that a man like him said, well, Syracuse is not that racist, or, you know, I think it's not that bad. I think it's one person just doing it and acting like a fool, excuse my language. But really, that's not the case. Because if you know about white supremacy and if you know about the history of Syracuse from Syracuse 8, you should know that the way Syracuse has moved is only to benefit Syracuse University, their money and their alumni, and to make sure that they build the look of Syracuse University. And so if anything threatens that, so if it's student athletes protesting, or if it's students just actually sitting in and protesting, and that's a threat to them and a threat to their money, they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that's no longer a threat. So that means starving students and taking scholarship away. Now, when it comes to athletes, when I noticed the basketball team had put Not Again SU or wore it during one of their games, that was only a publicity stunt, one, because no one came and spoke to Not Again SU. Boheim came and tried to bring in food, but we stopped him and said, you can't say you support us and you're here with us and bring us food if you're saying other words to media, and if you're saying different things to your athletes, to not protest and stuff like that. And so with the football team, it was interesting because there was an alumni who was a football team who was actually in close contact with me, and we were trying to, you know, get the current athletes to actually speak out against the oppression and the way the school was treating Black and brown students, because a lot of athletes comprise of Black and brown people. And so when he told us, like, he was like, yeah, we're gonna put out a video with athlete alumni, and I got in contact him and he never answered back. So that's the type of support where some people say, oh yeah, we're supporting Not Again SU, and things like that happen. So it's like, who's really supporting us? He said he had a talk with the current football athletes, and it was half and half. Half people said, yeah, we're down, let's do it. And the other half was like, I don't know, I don't think we should do it. And so we were kind of confused, and hearing Jonathan speak is interesting because we were kind of confused on where the current athletes were at. Were they supporting us or not? Is someone telling them not to support us? And we know that, you know, having them getting their scholarship taken away is a big risk for them. And so we weren't too pressed about them, you know, actively showing their support, because we know, like, I'm a person who's on a scholarship, and I risk my scholarship by just being an organizer on campus. So yeah, it's just interesting kind of hearing Jonathan speak and hearing from alumni who say they were supporting us and haven't really been supporting us. And so that's why we're on this call. And I know my other panelists can speak more about it, because we've been trying to get athletes to really speak out, because I always tell a lot of athletes that they have so much power on campus, and just them speaking out can really change things. Just the current football athletes can really change things. The alumni athletes can really change things. But if we're not all together, if we're not all in support, then, and we're all split up, then things can become tricky. And so that's why we really wanted the current athletes to speak, even the alumni to speak, because just having any athlete speak up about what's going on at Syracuse University is really important and can really cause change. I promise you, if we had athlete supports from Barnes, things would have been switched up real quick. Why? Because athletes are their number one prized possession. And I hate to say it as if they're like an item, but that's how they treat them. And I'm not an athlete, but that's how I see it. And given that I've organized on the outside and I work close contact with Colin Kaepernick, and we always talk about how athletes at school and how he was blackballed, it's a close connection. And so that's why we're mainly on this cause, because we really need, and it's interesting to hear everyone speak, because athletes have so much power compared to us. And I remember an alumni saying, hey, like, I was able to get the code of conducts out like this when I asked the chief of the DPS department. I was like, wow, we've been asking for that for months. And all you had to do was just ask one time and it was released like that. So you see how much power athletes hold on campus. And that's why we say we need their support. And I'm going to let my other Not Again ICU panelists speak on it.
Thank you for that. Yes, sure. The next one, please. Whoever wants to speak up.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the most notable things that Jonathan said was how athletes have really close connections with DPS in different ways that other Black students do on campus. And that's one of the most influential and we think important things that we've been trying to touch on these last couple months, is because he said that, you know, before we were suspended and before we were starved and all of that, it was kind of just like DPS was there, but they gave them a pass on a lot of things. But I've heard that from almost every athlete I've spoken to at Syracuse. So the fact that, you know, myself and other panelists and other Black students on campus feel so actually harmed and like uncomfortable when we encounter DPS, and then the sheer difference between us speaking to a DPS officer and an athlete speaking to a DPS officer, like that is the actual issue we're trying to get at. So like what my colleague was saying, we've just been trying to get as much athletic support as possible, because like she said, if that would have happened from the Barnes Center, I have no doubt that we wouldn't have even had to make the modifications to our first set of demands, that the chancellor would have just signed off on them. Because also, like she said, one of the alumni of the football team literally asked for a document we've been asking for months and was given to it after one phone call. I'm sorry. So stuff like that is why it's just been really heart-wrenching and like difficult to be organizing on campus, is because we find that there is such a great divide amongst the Black students that are athletes and aren't, because of the way the institution set it up, and not through any fault of their own or our own, but because of the way that, you know, the athletic programs are run in, you know, coalition with the administration, which is entirely problematic. But like that is the actual issue we've been trying to get at for months, is because certain students can literally walk around campus and not actually feel like an imminent threat from DPS, but then all of the other Black students do.
Can I ask y'all to talk about the letter that you received directly from DPS that you read while I was at the roundtable with you? Because that letter, you know, it sounded, and I don't want to use the word, but it sounded like a threat to me.
No, you can definitely use that word. That's exactly what it was.
So I'll let you explain to everybody what I'm referring to.
So basically, I'm gonna get chills from saying this, but DPS sent the chancellor this letter. And I'm saying this letter because even just thinking about it, I feel unsafe again. I can remember the feelings when we were all in Kraus-Heinz and getting chills from reading that. And I'm gonna see if I can find it and pull it up exactly, but it was essentially saying the chancellor, Bobby, and admin all said for them to starve us, for them to for us to not have no medical supplies, no hygiene supplies, nothing can go in the building or out the building unless it was students. One thing the school doesn't tell you is that the reasons why students didn't leave the building is because they said that once students left the building, they were going to be arrested. So they knew that staying inside that building was their only safe space from leaving that building. Because if they left that building, they would have got arrested by SPD. So going back to this letter, they essentially were saying, you guys were the one who told us to starve the students. Now you guys don't want us to watch them because they actually removed DPS from the building and put the yellow jackets because they felt unsafe. So they were upset. The DPS union were upset that they couldn't basically watch the student protesters in Krause Heinz, because we said we want DPS removed. We don't feel safe with them being inside. So someone asked, what is the Yellow Jackets? So the Yellow Jackets are the people who, if you go inside the I'm forgetting the name. Can one of the panelists help me? Where they play the games
The
at?
Dome.
The Dome. Sorry, I'm not a big alley person, but basically, the Yellow Jackets are the people who are in the Dome and are watching the game. So usually when you go to the Dome, you'll see people with yellow and black jackets. So we call them Yellow Jackets. And we were like, we'd rather have them the DPS. So DPS was really upset by that. The union was really upset that they weren't able to monitor us and watch us and threaten us like they were doing before. And towards the ending of the letter, they were like, the students deserve this. So everything that we were going through, so being starved, some people, sorry, somebody said, I want to understand starve the students a bit better. Was there an expectation that the university was going to provide protesting students with food? They didn't provide no food at all. If you wanted to get food, you had to leave the building. If you wanted to get food, you had to negotiate with them. If you didn't negotiate with them, if you didn't get food, if you didn't leave the building, you were not eating, you were not drinking, you had nothing. If you wanted to go use the bathroom and you needed a pad because you were on your motorcycle and you needed someone to bring it in, it was not coming in because you were protesting in the building and they wanted you out. If you didn't get out, you weren't getting no food, you weren't getting hygiene products, you were not getting nothing at all, not even medicine. My panelists could speak more about that.
I'm just jumping in really quickly, but the issue with that was that, oh, I'm sorry.
One second, before you go, and I will come right back to you. Can you, panelist number one, can you try to find that letter from DPS while panelist number two is talking? Because I think they need to hear the actual letter. And that was a direct letter to you all that you all read. Okay, so go back. So now panelist two, go ahead with your point. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. I'm also trying to find the letter on Twitter because we tweeted it a while ago. But like my colleague was saying, the issue with the starvation situation was that we were suspended. So we couldn't actually leave the building because then we'd be arrested. And no one wants to be arrested as a freshman at Syracuse. So the problem wasn't that we were promised food if we left. The problem was that they were withholding food, but we also couldn't leave because we would then be arrested if we were trespassing on campus, which would mean if we went to our dorm, if we went to a class, and if we stepped outside of the building. And then in addition to that, the real issue was that there were students that had like dire situations inside the building that literally had to leave, but because they were suspended, they couldn't because they would be arrested once we left. And there was one more thing, but I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, that's okay. Let me ask panelist number three, because I want to see if you, because since we have Jonathan on the Zoom with us, I want to see if you could give him, direct points of how the current football team can help and how they could be of help. And then maybe he can take that back to his bigger team and kind of run it by them, try to work, you know what I mean? So if you had to list three things that they can do actively to help, what would that be? But you found the letter, so we'll go to that right after that.
Yeah, so I think the first thing and the most important thing is just as a team to address what happened and like bringing up our narrative rather than the administration's narrative, because we know those are two completely different stories. So I think the first thing that you can do is have a conversation like the team without the coach, like talk about, I feel like you definitely have already done this because there's no way to avoid something like this that happened on campus that affects you all. But I feel like if you all can come up with an action item, and I can't tell you what that action item can be because I don't know what you are and are not allowed to do as student athletes. I don't know if you're advised to protest, not get engaged at all. And I'm not here to tell you like risk your entire athlete scholarship or like risk your potential chance at becoming like a professional athlete player. I can't tell you that, and I can't tell you to protest. I can't tell you what to do, but I think the best thing for you all to do is come up with a tangible action item that you think your entire team would agree with and bring it up to the coach. Whether that is, I really can't say like withhold your labor. Like I can't say threaten to not play a game, because I don't want any of you to get kicked off for that, and I know that can definitely happen. But I think if you all can agree to do something, whether that's like sitting out a game, like all of you doing something, I think they can't threaten you all at once, because you all are what they have and what they make money from. So I think if you all can agree to do something small, big, whatever that means to you guys, like posting, signing a statement, all emailing your coach, all emailing the a single administrator, like the chancellor, doing something that you all can agree on, you're all comfortable with, that's where it can start. But that definitely comes from a conversation with you and your team, and I don't know how comfortable you all are, and I can't speak to what you should do, because I'm not going to tell you what you should do.
Jonathan, I want you to also know that this is one of the things that Not Again SU, wants to be able to be assistance with, and to be able to contact the athletic director, to be able to have communication with the school, because as they said, we have pull with the school. We do, even though we're old athletes, former athletes, we're not current ones, we still have pull. Our numbers have grown to 350 different former athletes have signed on to Black Oranges, 350. So we suspect that, by the end of the year, it's going to be at least 500. So we're going to keep on growing, because as more people hear about this, everybody, we love, we have pride in our alma mater in Syracuse, but we also know that there are a lot of things that have to change, and that we want to be able to push for a better Syracuse. Because I'll be honest with you, after talking to them, I wasn't that confident about my son coming there. That's the honest truth. And that's why I said, okay, we got to do something, because as it stands right now, for Malcolm to be asking, he's hearing them say they don't feel safe. Why would he want to go into an environment where Black and brown students don't feel safe and he's Black? Sorry, so I don't want to go on a tangent, but I wanted to make sure that Jonathan understood that and get your response before we go to the letter.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a conversation we need to have, and we can definitely organize that and see what everybody thinks about it. We see what we can do to force their hand, because this is something we can definitely do. Because this past first couple of days of camp, we didn't practice. We sat out because how NCAA and ACC were trying to take advantage of us in this time and make us just play without having protocols to protect us. We didn't practice, so this is something we can definitely talk about and move forward with.
An interesting question popped up, and I had this question as well, as far as legal representation. And, because right now it's like y'all are doing all of this as students, as 18, 19, and 20-year-old students, and you're doing it beautifully. Like the list of demands, I thought it was very clear. And that's the thing that was bothering me when people say, oh, we don't know what they want. I was like, they listed what they wanted. But are you all having legal advice? That number one. And two, have any of the faculty helped you? I remember there was one professor that was there kind of sitting in the corner, kind of quiet when I was there. But talk about the faculty helping you, the legal representation, and then we'll go to the letter.
So we kind of have two faculty advisors / mentors. They're unofficial, but there for us at all times. Not really sure if I should name them, just because we've had problems with other professors, but being named in the DPS letter, which we'll read later. But yeah, so we have two permanent faculty advisors, and then we have a lot of support from a specific coalition of grad students that are also TAs and do stuff around campus. And then as for legal representation, we do have legal representation. We obtained our lawyer probably I think the end of the first week we were in Crouse-Hinds, so we've been consulting with him back and forth on a few things. His name's Ronald McGuire. You can read about, you'll see his name in probably every article that they've written about Crouse-Hinds or anything. And he is a pretty well-known lawyer in New York State, so yeah.
Okay, all right. And all right, we can go to the letter now. Again, panelist number one, if you have the letter.
Yeah, so I have the letter here, and I'm just going to read. And also, one of the panelists put the link in the chat. So if you want to read along, it's in the chat. But I'm going to I'm gonna read this as best as I can because some of them have dates of, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So it says, from the Department of Public Safety Officers, dear Chancellor Severud, that's Count Severud, the Chancellor. They said recent events occurring at Syracuse University and the response to those events have compelled us, the officers working in the University Department of Public Safety, to reach out to you. We would like to set this record straight. The movement known as Not Again SU has fabricated a negative image of the DPS that is not only totally inaccurate, but also completely contrary to the purpose of DPS. The DPS officers worked around the clock 365 days a year, often in shift running over 18 hours a day to keep the SU community safe. We stand by the DPS mission and vision to maintain a safe, secure learning and living environment on the SU campus and in the areas surrounding the campus. However, events over the past several weeks, such as what occurred recently at Kraus-Heinz Hall, have made it difficult for DPS to maintain its mission. This is not because the events occurred, but rather because SU has prohibited the DPS officers from carrying our duties during these events. At Kraus-Heinz Hall, for example, DPS was acting at all times under the order of yourself and senior administration for SU regarding how to handle the protest. At no time did any DPS administration or officers make any decision for how to handle the protest. Further, parents of students involved in Not Again SU wrote a letter attached to hereto providing a false portrayal of what took place at Kraus-Heinz Hall. See attachment 1. Contrary to the letter, students occupying Kraus-Heinz Hall were free to leave at any time. In fact, they were asked to leave several times and not to occupy the building whatsoever. The DPS officers on duty were verbally abused and had food and items thrown at them. Just to be clear, nobody purposely threw food at them. Students on the outside who was trying to get food to the people on the inside was throwing it in the door, and DPS was blocking it from being thrown to the students. And so that's why probably one person had got hit by probably bread, or we were just people were just throwing pizza boxes in there to get to the students so that they can eat food. So that's just to clear that up.
That's on video. Y'all had actually a video.
Right, that's on video. Everything is on our Instagram, Twitter. You can see it, and we can even send it because we document every single thing. Some students use physical force and push officers as they were trying to secure the building. To be clear, that's not true. Students were trying, one DPS officer, he was going through a big crowd who was protecting the students on the inside. And so he was using his elbow to shove, and there's videos of that. And so that's why they're saying that he was physically abused, which is completely false, just to clear that up. And I'm going to be doing that a lot, reading through this so that you know exactly from both point of views. Other students depicted in a photograph attached to here to directed a poster of one of our African-American officers, which stated, "Our worst fear is a C word." To be clear, I don't personally know about that, but there have been students who had their own relationships with DPS, and so I don't know if it was a student on the outside who put that, but it was not any of the organizers. No organizers have ever said that about any DPS officer. We make sure we keep it completely respectful and honest, and so that must have been a student who was just posting a picture. The attached video link even shows student using force against DPS chief, where he had to resort to his training utilizing weapon retention techniques because students were touching his firearm and attempting to disarm him. That is completely false too. Students were he was coming out the door and he said to a student, "It's cold, isn't it?" And basically trying to antagonize the students. And so he actually a Black woman, he put his hand on her, and in the video you'll see things started to get hectic and he went to reach for his firearm, but you don't see any student physically trying to grab his firearm. So that should clear that part up. Um, this type of behavior by students demonstrate a depraved indifference to law and order and has created only an unsafe work environment for the officers, but also an unsafe environment for SU community as well. So they're saying that Not Again SU is an unsafe organization on campus. The DPS officers are continually attending trainings and kept up to date on trends within the policing world and communities in order to make the best officers we can be. For example, on November 22nd, the DPS officers attended training Implicit Bias presented by Dr. Bryant Marks. On July 11, 2019, the DPS officers attended a training by Learners Group LCC called Moving Beyond Unconscious Bias, presented by Rodney Patterson, President and CEO, and Lisa, I cannot pronounce her last name, but she's the Senior Vice President of Consulting Services. More recently, the DPS officers attended a training presented by SU Assistant Professor of Religion, Biko Mandela Gray, called Policing Past and Present and Future. The DPS officers welcomed Professor Gray to present training. However, Gray has been actively vocal with the students involved with Not Again SU on his Twitter feed and put his actual Twitter name, and making such comments as, I never, ever, ever want to hear build trust between communities and law enforcement again. If you're one of the not all cops people, I don't want to hear it. We're literally watching the formation of police state occur. So to explain this tweet, this is when students were being starved and the DPS officer went to reach for his weapon. And so Biko Gray has been active, like he has been very vocal in the past about racial incidents on campus, and he has been in the building a couple of times. And so basically they were saying that Biko Gray, which is this the professor, is also harming or causing a threat to DPS. They're saying this about a professor. The message Gray is tweeting contradicts the training he presented to DPS and only serves to destroy the bridges we have tried to build between DPS and SU community. In short, the lack of respect towards law enforcement being fostered by SU is tragic. Such behavior, if they occurred outside of SU, would no doubt result in arrests being made. So they're saying that if this was to happen outside of SU, students would have gotten arrested, and that was okay for peacefully protesting, just keeping that in mind. DPS officers can no longer tolerate being treated this way. So now they're turning this against them. Like, we're being treated badly. They're not even thinking about what's going on campus. They're saying we as DPS officers are being treated horribly. Anyways, to allow students to continue to behave this way without understanding that there can be serious consequences and repercussions only to serve to create hostile and I cannot pronounce this word, I think it's volatile environment at SU that needs only proverbial, I cannot pronounce that word. Yeah, match to stricken to cause an explosion. That sentence right there was really the sentence that really made students feel really, really uncomfortable in Crouse-Hinds. And I think that's where a lot of us feel the unsafety and uncertainty with DPS, with just this short paragraph right here, saying that we would be arrested, saying that we are hostile and we create this negative environment, when really all we want is for everybody to be inclusive. Like Syracuse always says, diversity and inclusion, but there's never inclusion. And so I think this sentence right here really made students feel unsafe, just to be clear. To ignore such students' behavior by allowing it to continue unchecked rises to a level of gross negligence. We implore you to allow DPS officers to do their job to keep SU and ourselves safe. As always, we stand with our chief and remain ready to follow his decisions and order. Respectfully submitted, the SU DPS Officer Union. So I wanted to just hit on that real quick, only because, and I know the other panelists can speak to it, but just reading this short paragraph right here on this screen tells you the relationship DPS has with students. They say, we're here to keep law and order. talking about students that way. If they were to get off campus, they would be arrested, that they're violent, that they're hostile. This is the type of language that DPS is using against students. And so I want you guys to really look over this again and read it to yourself and in your head and see why we get chills every time we read it, and see why we feel unsafe every time we encounter DPS, and why my panelists said how different when athletes interact with DPS compared to how we interact with DPS. Because I promise you, if it was student athletes inside that building, they would not be calling us violent. They would not be calling us hostile. Rather, they were trying to keep the peace, as they always say. So this is what they wrote to the chancellor, and this is what they put out, and this is how they speak about students, because they're supposed to be there to serve and protect, but yet this is how they talk about students, and you can see it for yourself. We don't even have to fully explain it, but just by reading, just by looking at the first paragraph, you can tell how DPS treats students.
Wow. And when y'all read this to me, I wasn't looking at it, while you were reading it, and seeing the words as you're reading. It's to allow students to continue to behave this way without understanding there could be a serious consequences and repercussions, only serves to create a hostile and volatile environment at SU. Those are threatening words. I can't, and I'm not trying to lead, I'm supposed to just be hosting, but I'm looking at these words, and this is not okay. Like this isn't, so this is where we are right now. I think this letter kind of just gives you an entire, captures everything in a nutshell of what the students were dealing with, and the reason why, we as Black Oranges, as alumni, want to use our power in order to be able to solve this. And this is something that we are dedicated to doing. So I appreciate you all coming on, and I appreciate you all taking the time and, going over this. I understand how troubling it is. And somebody asked in the chat room, what do your parents say, and do they feel comfortable sending you back to SU? You know what I mean? Like sending you back to start, like you said, you're starting school here in a week. You're going back up there in a week. What is the feeling going back for you and your parents?
Kind of just to speak for myself, I had my parents basically on FaceTime every minute of the first 4 days that we were in Cross-Hine, so they saw exactly like what the interactions were between us, administration, and DPS. And my parents were individually getting emails from the school saying that we were being provided 3 meals a day, which is something that I wanted to say before. So they were actively being lied to, like most parents are being lied to, but they were also seeing what was going on, so they knew that that was not true. And then my parents, my mom actually came up for about 2.5 weeks. I think my dad stayed like a week and a half because they just did not feel safe with me being there, especially after like watching us do our drills. If we were to get raided by SPD, like what we would have to do to protect ourselves. So they don't feel comfortable at all with me going back. They've tried to convince me to actually transfer multiple times. I have some kind of undying love for our school that I think extends through my passion for wanting to see it get better, but also wanting to see it get better for other Black students. But I know that like among our parents and a lot of other parents, the feeling is like, especially with the pandemic and everything about going back right now, we know for a fact that a majority of the Black students live on South Campus. Like that's just how our school works. That's like actual, you can find the data if they release it. And we know that our schools released a number of articles and emails already saying how over-policed by DPS, South Campus, and other like technical on-campus residence halls are gonna be. So they do not feel, my parents have begged me to stay home. I don't want to stay home, but my parents have actually begged me to stay here. They don't feel comfortable with me or my friends, like anyone in the organizing group going back. And that's also because of some of the alumni from Not Again SU have told us, like one of my colleagues was saying earlier, how they've been denied specific scholarship opportunities and different things on campus after being labeled one of the Black activists on campus. So they know, especially because of the way DPS uses their body cams, which is a whole nother conversation we could have, but they've already profiled a ton of us, and they have our names on a list that they say that doesn't exist, but we know exists. So I personally don't feel the best going back. I wish it could be different, but I also don't feel comfortable staying away or not being there to at least support other students on campus. So that's kind of where I am personally.
Well, that's really commendable of you. I mean, it's just when I was blown away by all of you all's, courage and commitment and your determination. I just thought it was absolutely amazing. I want to ask another non-again SU panelist how your parents feel about you coming back and how you feel coming back on campus.
I can speak on myself. Like, my parents don't know that I'm an organizer. They don't know that I'm involved at all. They know that there have been protests going on. They saw it in the news like in November when there was a lot of coverage in the media with like CNN and NBC, and they called me and they were like, "Oh, like what's going on at your school?" And I told them I was protesting, and they like basically yelled at me and told me not to protest, but like I wasn't really gonna listen to that. Obviously, I'm still here. So after that, I didn't feel comfortable telling them that I'm, a core organizer, or like I don't tell them anything about that, and I avoid that topic. They don't feel safe with me being here, but I think after all the trauma this school has instilled in me, I don't feel comfortable leaving or running away from this after I have put a lot of effort, time, and energy into this, and the amount of energy the school has taken out of me. I want to do something about that, and I can't just leave the school.
Wow. And not again SU student, I think number one, I'll ask you the same question, how your parents feel and how you feel returning.
So I have a really strict mom. I come from a really strict. My mom is an immigrant. So a lot of the activism work I do, me and my mom are completely different, and so I'm more the very outspoken person, and she's really like she's more quiet, and so we don't see eye to eye things when it comes to activism work, and so she knows that I do the work, and she doesn't really understand things about like racist institutes that what happens to Syracuse. She doesn't really understand stuff like that. So it's hard to explain everything that goes on with Syracuse University and how it is to be a Black woman on that campus. But I think like in general, she fears for my safety. And so a lot of times I sometimes don't tell her things because she gets worried too often, and especially if she knows about what happened at Syracuse, she would be even more worried. But because I'm on there on a full ride, like I always maneuver and push past through things. And so if I'm gonna have to deal with racial incidents and organizing as I graduate, then I'm gonna push through that and deal with that, because at the end of the day, like we come from a strong family. And so she doesn't want us to like, I don't think she really wants me to be on that campus, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And so I think it's the same thing with the other panelists said. Like, I think a lot of our parents fear for our safety, especially that we organize, but I think it's all really for the good. Like, we don't do these things for ourselves. We really do it for our community, our people, for the people coming onto campus, for the people who graduated 20 years ago. We do it for everybody. We don't just do this stuff for ourselves.
Wow, and thank you for that. And Jonathan, I want to ask you, how do you feel after hearing all of this? I'm sure you didn't know all of these details, but how do you feel now after hearing all of this?
I wish I could say that I was surprised. Like some people felt that way. Like at some point when everything was going down, a lot of the Black athletes we didn't really feel safe on campus for a minute, for a good minute, and it's just very, I don't know. It's terrible for somebody to feel for people to feel like unsafe, especially people that are supposed to be protecting and looking over them. And I just wish like there's something as athletes that we can like start doing like to make everybody like feel safer about that.
So, and this is a difficult subject, and this is kind of how I was after sitting with you. I was kind of like, I was left speechless. Like I didn't even know how to respond to everything that I heard. And I really want to thank you all. I know somebody just said, Monica just said it in the chat, but I really want to thank y'all again, for your continued strength, for your perseverance, for the fact that and I understand your parents' concerns. Like I said, I left there like I don't want my son to come here in the middle of all this. That's how I left meeting you. When we had our roundtable discussion, that was what I thought. Looking at Malcolm, who grew up loving Syracuse, you know what I mean. Both of his parents graduated from there. We have Syracuse stuff all over the house. We're alumni, but that's again. I want to reiterate this. This is not just a one-time discussion. And then we all feel like, okay, we did our part, we listened. This is not what, and I told y'all then, we're going to keep on pushing to try to make things better. And that's what we're going to continue doing. So we're gonna continue. We're gonna use our connections that we have there and try to push for different things. We're gonna reach out to DPS and try to hold them accountable. Try to see how we can work with them and try to how to address some of these issues that are going on. The Syracuse University as a whole, they have a different department that they just put together, a multicultural department. So we're gonna try to do what we can. And I think in communicating with current athletes, we can use our influence with that as well, because we're old heads, you know what I mean? We're all older, but we still have, the Syracuse connection. So I just want to reiterate that to you all. And I want to, again, thank you all for coming on. I know we've been here for like an hour and a half, but I really want to say I appreciate you all, standing up for not, and this isn't just something that is going to affect you all. This is something that you're trying to put in place. The things that you're trying to put in place is going to help, my son, if he wants to come to Syracuse. You know what I mean? The black and brown students all behind you after you've gone and left the university, that'll feel safe, because feeling safe on campus isn't something that, is like a privilege. Students should feel safe on campus. So, that's all I'm going to say. I want to bring our Brian on to close us out, but I really want to thank you all again. I can't thank you enough. And Brian Turan, if you could come on to close us out, that would be great.
All right. Well, I don't even know how to follow up on that.
Thanks for doing this.
First, I just want to thank the panelists that came on. Listening to all the things that you guys said, I won't speak for the group that's on this call, but we've had probably about 55 people come in and out. We had about 71 people that registered for this thing, so a really good turnout. So thanks to everybody got on the call. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people on this call probably have the same, feelings that I had. And those feelings are, they're feelings of pain and disappointment, embarrassment, denial. I think some of the things, panelist number one, you were saying at times, I wanted to deny it. And then the more I heard you talk and the more that, facts that you put up, it really just paints a picture that we've never seen that university. So I appreciate your courage. I appreciate your strength. All three panelists that came on here, including Kingsley. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but Kingsley Jonathan. Just the strength that the four of you young men and women are displaying on this call just shows why I chose to go to Syracuse University, because look at the amazing people that you are. So, just closing up, one of the things that we really pushed with Black Oranges is that we really want to make a change. And this is something that is extremely important to us. I'm going to read kind of the statement that we have on everything, because I want you to truly know that we are going to do everything in our power to help your cause and really just help the university be better as a whole. And on all of our letters, we're going to have this statement. Black Oranges was founded by Black and brown former Syracuse University student athletes. We stand against systemic and everyday racism by advocating for social justice and economic empowerment. We will use our collective influence, resources, and network to inspire, unify, and confront systemic oppression, racial inequalities, and police brutality at our alma mater and our respective communities and throughout the world. And that's what we stand for. Hearing everything that you guys talked about tonight was like I said, eye-opening, and we're going to do everything in our power moving forward to be an asset for you and the other groups that are on campus. So that way, whenever my children are fortunate enough to be able to make this choice, they can make it with a good conscience, not worrying about the same stuff that people worried about in the 60s, 70s, and 50s. I mean, this is just getting ridiculous, and we're going to use our resources to be an asset for you and help make some change. So that's what I have. Everybody that came out tonight, thank you so much. It's extremely important. This was not a one-time thing. This was a fact-finding, a chance for us to learn and hear and feel what the current students are feeling. And please know that there's going to be more to come, and we're really going to reach out to all of you because it's going to take everyone's help to make our university better and even just our country better. Because obviously we need some serious healing. The conversations that we had today aren't very much different than the conversations that my parents were having and my grandparents were having, and we got to stop this cycle. So, Derek, thank you, everyone. Monica, Etan, Shelton, if you guys have anything, please step in. Okay. All right, everyone. I really appreciate it. Etan, awesome job. Again, members of the Not Again SU, thank you. Kingsley, thank you so much for your time. And everybody, please, if you have ways that you can help, please send in your emails and reach out because, again, this community is growing and we can use all the help we can get. Thank you.